Hey there, it's your old dad here. I'm going to continue where we left off last time. In the last video, we had a runaway blood pressure spiral, which could have killed my wife and child. We were only saved by pure chance or divine intervention. We found out my wife had preeclampsia, and that neither one of them is out of the woods yet. As you are about to find out, the story starts to get very interesting. At this point, the hospital staff told us they were going to stabilize her with magnesium sulfate. This is what people colloquially call Epsom salt. It would be administered intravenously, which helps to protect the baby and the mother. This was very hard on her. She felt terrible. But it helped her hold on for another couple of days until one night, while I slept next to her on the couch, she began to hallucinate. I heard her talking and awakened to see what she was going on about. According to her, she was no longer there. She had become the conscious and physical manifestation of a snow-covered mountainside. Upon her, there sat a ski resort. She felt peaceful, serene, and expressed a desire to stay there. She could feel the snow in a tactile way and said it was nice. It wasn't at all uncomfortable, just cool and calming. Then she found herself in an empty room with white walls and a bright light and a mezzanine above an area with couches. On the bottom level to her left was a door, and there were several salesmen in sleek suits standing in a line lazily around the front of the couches. Upon their backs they had black feathered wings, folded neatly behind them. The eldest of them, appearing to be in his mid-50s, talked to her mind to mind. There were no words, just notions and rapid idea exchange. He said he was here to help. One of the salesmen who was closest to the door opened it. Instantly, she appeared in front of the door, looking inside and slowly floating towards it. Beyond lay a black void. He said in her mind, "You want to go in there?" Well, of course, my wife declined, stating, "I know who you are, and I'm not going in there. I don't want to talk to you. Leave me alone." He said, "Okay." Then suddenly she opened her eyes and she was out of the room. Inexplicably, he gave her a parting gift of a vision of a dead woman getting the flesh on her side ripped away by some invisible force. She then found herself out of her body again, in the hospital room looking down at her bed. The rest of the room dissolved into a featureless gray space. She was approached by an apparition of a woman with red hair. Her entire body was a floating, amorphous, elongated trail of images of life and babies, baby lambs, chicks, flowers, bees, trees, bushes, grass, and other signs of fertility. The entity reached out to her and tenderly touched her face. Beside this woman was her dead mother, and a very good friend of hers that had recently died in childbirth. And behind all of them was an angel. The entity told her that her and her son were going to be okay, and that she should calm down and not worry about this. Meanwhile, I had hurried out to the nurse to let her know something was dreadfully wrong. And I thought, once again, that my wife and child were dying. After some blood tests and about half an hour of waiting, they said that her kidneys were in distress and they were not filtering the magnesium sulfate properly. So the levels had gone far higher than they were supposed to. They took her off the drip and she slowly became more coherent in the coming hours. Then they were finally able to put her back on, but at a much more diminished dose that her kidneys could handle. In the coming months, this would turn out to be a very significant event. Meanwhile, her proteinuria levels and her creatinine were also going up. That, combined with her lack of ability to clear the magnesium sulfate and her blood pressure starting to rise again, a decision was made to complete the pregnancy. They decided to try a vaginal birth at 29 weeks. Now, we didn't know at the time, but this is a mortifyingly terrible idea. But to be fair, there had come to be an understanding between me, my wife, and the hospital staff. Keep that baby in there as long as you can, whatever it takes. Now, you might be asking why that is. It is not at all uncommon for a premature child to survive at 29 weeks. But the period of time between 28 and 32 weeks is absolutely critical. Every hour, every day, and every week the child stays in the womb, the chances for a long-term outcome increase drastically. And we were right in the middle of that window, but on the bad side of it. So I think, but I cannot make a definitive claim, that they may have tried for a regular delivery just to give him a little more time in the womb, knowing that this is what we want, and that it was also a good opportunity to collect data. It was a little risky, but we agreed to it somewhat out of ignorance, and I would say it was probably for the better. This would prove to be the last act of mercy from the medical system that we would see for a very long time. The failed vaginal birth lasted almost 2 days. The dilation was very slow, and there was a lot of monitoring. The contractions came on very weak and slow, and as they ramped up, his heart rate started dipping dangerously low. They called them carrots, because on the heart rate monitor, the dips look like a cross-section of a carrot root. It is a sign that the baby is in distress. So the decision was made to do a C-section. My wife's condition had also deteriorated in the meantime, so this was getting really critical. And once again, I thought I was going to lose my family before it even started. My son was born at 29 weeks and 4 days. He weighed a little over 2 pounds, small even for a baby at his stage of development. He was not breathing and had to be kept in a plastic bag to prevent him from getting hypothermia. He was immediately put on a ventilator, which pulsed at a rate so fast, it felt like it was vibrating more than breathing. The force of the air moving into his lungs was such that it blew holes through them directly into his chest cavity. Tubes had to be punctured through his rib cage to continuously suck out the extra air, which would build up and prevent his lungs from collapsing. They were able to get him stabilized, and he was placed in an incubator because he could not regulate his own temperature. His food came via intravenous flow directly into his bloodstream because he could not swallow without aspirating. My wife took about a day to recover, just enough so that we could go visit him in a wheelchair. Still in his incubator, which would be his home for the coming weeks, we were not allowed to touch him because it could overstimulate him in his fragile state. And there he was, still and seemingly lifeless, no larger than a guinea pig, with pink wrinkled skin, pulsating at a frightening rate, covered in all kinds of contraptions and monitors. Our son. And in such a state I will never forget. As soon as he heard our voices, he opened his eyes and stared directly into ours. And there he was. There was our boy. And he was telling us that he knew us. I think that's a good place to stop for today. I hope you enjoyed reliving the birth of my son with me. There is no question that it was the defining moment of our lives. I am honored and grateful to share it with you. If this story helps to educate you on what might happen if you wait too long to have children, then I've done my job. If it encourages you to get off the fence, then do it today. And finally, if you have waited too long, I hope you can see that despite the risk, it's so worth it. That moment where you look into your child's eyes is transcendent. It is holy. And you know from the moment that you stare into their eyes that you would die for them. And some people do. Please stay tuned for more content. My next video will be about our extended stay at the hospital, which lasted for almost 2 months. The story is just beginning. And just as a reminder, I will also be creating a members-only video for Patreon and locals. There, I will discuss some of our issues with the medical system that I do not feel comfortable talking about here. That should be dropping very soon. Like and subscribe and donate at the links below. Stay safe, kids.